Hi folks, it's many years since I've made a YouTube video, and yeah, you just have to bear with me a little bit on that. But I wanted to talk to you today about something that I've noticed over the past few months and years. I have slowly been noticing with my own pattern of photography, and that's about complication. Okay, so complicating things that you don't need to complicate. And a lot of it, in my opinion, is coming from marketing. Okay, now companies make cameras, they need to make money, and they make us think that we need all these different features. But certainly in the past few weeks, I've realized that I need far less of these features than I'm led to believe. And it's not that I've fallen for marketing in the past. I've always been conscious of the decision, but I've just hoped that the execution of a lot of the technology that I'm being offered in these fantastic cameras is going to be better than it is. And it's a really weird thing, but I've found that certain features actually get in the way. So what am I talking about? So if we look back 50, 100 years, okay, a camera exposes an image, all right? That's all it's doing. It doesn't need to do any more than that. There is a saying that any pro can use a camera, any camera type of thing. I'm not quite sure about that. I think sometimes the technology can help you. There's no doubt about it that this is sort of like a generalized video. If you're a specific type of shooter, there's going to be certain things and certain aspects that technology can help you with. But I think also it only helps you so far sometimes. And like I say, sometimes it gets in the way. And what I've noticed is, so I'm actually selling a lot of my equipment. This is not a sales video. It's already mostly sold by this point. I've got here an A7R. I've got here an Olympus OM1, okay? And I've got here a Olympus EM1X. Now, EM1X is actually quite dear to my heart, but I'm still selling it. And the reason is that I found that, and this is going to be a little bit of a rant, but I recently went to a Leica event. Now, I've always been into Leica cameras. In the background, they've always been there. And for a lot of people, they're seen as very expensive things for lawyers and doctors. And it's a shame that that perception is given to the internet and to the world, because actually what they really are is a tool, and what they are is a simplistic way of creating images. Now, this is not an advert for Leica, okay? There are going to be so many people out there that don't even want to go near one of those, and that's absolutely fine. But if we think back a few years when everything was film, then basically that was probably about as advanced as a Leica. Lots of things were manual on the cameras. You didn't have EVFs, you didn't have live view and things along those lines. And actually, I think sometimes it's a bit like if you go somewhere with satellite navigation, the sat nav does all the thinking for you, and then you don't really do much yourself as part of the process. Whereas if you decide I'm going to read a map or I'm going to look up the route and try and get there myself, you may have a few hurdles along the way, but you'll probably be thinking more throughout the process. And I think that's kind of what I've noticed recently, is that I'm letting the camera automate a lot of what I do, and I don't really like that. I see my images sometimes and I'm thinking, if I would have done this, that, or the other, then maybe the image would have been a little bit different and I would have preferred it in some way. So the strong points of some of these cameras are, like the A7R5 here, the autofocus is insane, okay? And what it can help me do is it can help me compose an image without having to think about where the person is or where the subject is, if you're using subject detection. And that's great, but it's for a specific use case where I'm running and gunning and maybe I'm doing it for work or something like that. And I've recently decided I'm probably not going to do much more work in terms of photography. actually going to pivot now into other things. And the reason for that is because I've noticed that it's ruining my fun for photography and my love for it. It's becoming work. Photography for me initially, when I started it, was actually, it was something to take my mind off the stresses of life, or the work, or the business, day-to-day things that were stressing me out. I'd go out with my camera and I'd forget about everything else. And that's why I've started to change things and go back to less work and less paid work with photography. Probably be doing more YouTube videos, to be fair, as well. And this all changed recently when I hadn't had a Leica for a while, and I went to the factory a couple of weeks ago and I picked up an M. Okay, doesn't matter which M. It's just, they're all the same, basically. A few of them have a little bit of advanced features, but you'll never end up using it. It just depends on whether you want monochrome or colour, and you want a, you want the manual focus experience, basically, is what you're buying an M for. So Leica SL, Leica Q, they don't really appeal to me because, again, we're starting to complicate things. We've got autofocus and stuff like that. But then you get other cameras, which are things like the OM1 here. And for starters, the thing that I found with this camera is, like, I don't care about sensor size and noise, okay? I think that's overrated. There's a lot of pixel peepers out there. If you're selling work, your clients aren't going to be bothered about noise, okay? They just aren't. As long as it's not absolutely ridiculous and you've controlled the exposure and you've not pushed it 5 stops in Lightroom when you're editing, then most sensors now, in terms of noise performance, are absolutely brilliant. We're in 2023 at this point, and we're recording. We're far advanced to what we were a few years ago. There's a lot of YouTube rubbish out there. I watch some videos and I think, what, you're just talking like a robot. This camera, it's got so many features on it. They're all useful, but I never end up using them. And the reason is because I forget where they are. It's not like there's a button for each individual feature. And then the autofocus isn't that brilliant on some of these OM1s and OM system cameras. So that can sometimes let you down. And I'd actually rather try and control the autofocus myself, which is why the M is so good, because if I mess up, then I can kind of live with that. But if I press a button and the camera doesn't do its job and I miss that shot, I'm blaming the camera and I'm really angry then. So yeah, this is another camera that, the other thing as well that's very important that people don't really talk about often is the user experience of a camera, the tactility, the functionality in terms of like holding it. Okay, now for me, when I hold this camera, this finger here, sorry, it's not focusing very well, it wants to pick mine, but this finger here is like, it's got nowhere to go. And I don't think I've got extraordinarily large hands. I think I've got pretty average sized hands. And that annoys me. Now, the reason why the EM1X is different is because this is probably one of the best cameras you could ever hold. Everything just fits in the right place, whether it does the vertical feature, it's got it all built in, it's, a built-in grip and everything. It's an amazing camera, the EM1X, but it's just not going to fit me anymore. Whereas this will. Now, this is a stupid camera, okay? It's far too expensive, although it's not, because I might caveat that with something in a bit. But to the average person, it's far too expensive, and this is where the lawyers and doctors things comes from. And actually at Leica last week, I met so many lawyers and doctors. But we need to move away from the image of that being associated with Leica and think about it more of people that just want simplicity. There's no autofocus. You focus manually, basically, by using this tab. So when you're using the camera, there's ways of using it. I mean, basically there's this zone area on the, it's really trying to pick me up, isn't it? This zone area here on the on the lens. I've just realised the irony of the autofocus messing up here. It's, you know, this is just on an iPhone. So for me, this camera makes a lot of sense. To most people, it makes no sense. However, there are a few key attributes that make me want to take this out over anything else. One of the attributes is the size. Okay, now it's not a small camera, it's not the size of a Ricoh GR3 or anything, but it's a nice size, and the lens here, I mean, this is actually got a lot of screws to it. This is actually a 1.4 35mm lens. For me, like that on a full frame camera would be, you know, it'd be somewhere like that, wouldn't it? On a like a regular autofocus full frame, should I say? This is full frame. But yeah, 35-1.4. So traveling and just general out and about sort of things, that's brilliant. I don't need a massive system with me all the time. This is one of the reasons why I like the Micro Four Thirds system, because the lenses are generally quite small, although they tend not to be the best quality. So then we have a camera that basically shoots, I think it's 2 or 3 frames a second if you're in burst mode. So that's not brilliant, but at the same time, it's enough to probably capture some nice moments on the street. If you've got a subject and just keep your finger down, you know, you'll probably have 1 or 2 frames that you're going to be happy with of that subject. The zone focusing means that actually I don't even have to think about autofocusing. I don't have to place my point wherever I am. I can use zone focusing, which is something in itself, which I may do a video on at some point if you would like me to. But basically the zone focusing is a way of just setting the lens to a certain focal length, a certain point in its focus range, where a lot of things are going to be in focus. So it might be like from 1 meter to 5 meters, or it might be from 0.5 meters to 3 meters, or it might be from 2 meters to infinity, that sort of thing. And basically the way you do that is you just choose the aperture that's going to suit you best, and you move that little tab until this here basically lines up with a scale. And this is like old school. I mean, like this, they were doing stuff like this in the 1950s. Okay, so, but it doesn't mean just because it's old that it's defunct. And all right, we do have like autofocus systems that are very advanced, but I don't feel like they're going to give me the same experience. And I'm going to feel afterwards, after I've got the shot, I'm going to feel that actually the camera has taken the picture and I've just pressed a button. Okay, I recently had a client who really annoyed me because basically they just wanted a button pusher. They don't want anybody with any skill. They just want somebody to capture as many photos as possible, and you're just pressing buttons all day. So that's how I have that same feeling with an autofocus camera sometimes, that it's, especially like with the Sony, because the Sony like literally sees people, it sees subjects, and you have the little tab on the back if you want to move the focus thing around, and basically it's doing everything for you. So for me, as a true photography enthusiast, I want to do some of that. I want to be part of it. I want to know that if I captured that shot, I got that shot myself. I remember many years ago, I was speaking to a guy at a store that sold Leica. I promise you it's not a Leica advert. And basically he was using a 50mm 0.95 Noctilux, which is a crazy, stupid, expensive, heavy, massive lens that even most Leica people aren't that bothered about, okay? But it's like Leica saying, we can do this, we can make this as good as it is. And that lens, to focus anything at all, is difficult. It's really not easy. And I remember this young lad, he was probably about 20, and he captured a shot of a pigeon taking off in flight from a fountain, and he was at 0.95, and it's like literally, it was like Photoshop had cut the bird out, and bird was in focus and everything else was just like creamy blur, okay? And he was so happy with that because he captured that shot at 0.95, okay? The camera didn't really do much at all. So I think what the point of this video is, if there is any at all, is me just trying to say that actually I'm coming away from the more computerized, computational things. The Olympus system is amazing. I am not dissing this system at all. I have enjoyed it so much over the years, and there's actually another camera which I still have and I will always keep from Olympus, which is now OM system. And I adore that camera just because it's so tactile in hand. But there's more to photography than fast autofocus, than, you know, just like all these advanced features, all these megapixels. Megapixels can be good for cropping. I think especially like with a system like the Leica, actually I appreciate the megapixels because I am going to be shooting primes. And there will be a time where I think, oh, I wish I'd brought my 90 instead of a 35 or something like that. You don't get the same look, the same compression, but you can just rescue a shot if you had something. So the megapixels are good, but you don't want too many of those either. Like I think the latest Leicas have 60 megapixels. This has 60 megapixels. 60. I mean, it's just the new GFX 100S or whatever it is, or 102 or whatever, 100 megapixels. There will be use cases for it. What I'm trying to say is just read between the lines and look at the marketing and think, do I need that? Is that going to work for me? Because the chances are it's not. And the chances are that really, if you went out with a camera from 10 years ago, you'd take a great photo because you're into photography. Just watching this channel probably means you're into photography. And I think it's so important that, you know, that we realize this. Sometimes we all get carried away, and I just don't like it. And I've kind of realized that I'm doing it. So, but complete rant. Not sure there was that much point to it, but what I would like to do is I would like to see what comments people make, and what views and things you have about this, and there's no bias, I promise you. Like if you say to me, Wayne, you're being ridiculous, like why would you ever buy a Leica, you've got too much money. Well, trust me, I don't have too much money, especially after buying a Leica. I definitely don't have too much money now, but for me, if I'm going to have a passion, I want the right tool for it. And actually my passion is photography, and I want the thing that makes me enjoy it the most, and doesn't detract from it. That's really important. So that's basically what I'm going to say here. Comment with what you think, and also I'd like to know what sort of videos you'd like me to maybe make. Maybe, I mean, I can talk about anything you want with photography. So if you come up with any cool subjects, I'd like to respond to those and make some videos. It's always nice to know what the audience wants. But this is just a really simple way of looking at photography. Just pare back, go to film cameras, try those out, try cameras from 10 years ago that cost 60 quid on eBay. You know, just see how you get on with these sorts of things, because I think you'll be surprised, and I think you'll realize, just like myself, that as good as technology is, and it is great, we don't need a lot of these things. And some of the greatest photographs that have ever been made have been made using film cameras and cameras in the 1950s and 60s. And, you know, there's so many things you can, and so many photographers you can look at. And that's actually something I will look at some point, is the books that have inspired me down the line. But yeah, I'm going to stop ranting. And like I say, just leave a comment, let me know what you think, and let me know what you'd like to see in future videos as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.